So we had some problems in Sparta. It's a pretty fun event though. First time I ever been racing at all, especially in this piece of shit. First couple problems we had was the first test pass I made. The truck felt all right, but it just wasn't there. I let out of it early, but the RPM was coming up, but it just felt funny. And then I got back in line, and there was a bunch of cars. And while I was waiting, the temperature kind of come up about 190, because when I made the pass, it was about 160. And I was waiting in line, and pretty soon I got 195. And then once it started hitting 200, I'd shut it off, turn it back on, let the fans and pump run while I switched to a smaller battery. So I was worried about that dying. So I had it running, and then I revved it a few times because it just didn't sound good, and it quit. Well, I tried to start it, the starter click, and I keep having problems with the terminal falling off the solenoid on the starter. So I kept putting that on, and then I wheel it over, and finally it started. And when I made the second test pass, it was at 230 degrees, and there was no power at all. So I got back to the pits, and I started checking timing, and timing was off. So distributor turned. The next problem I had was fuel pressure was 15 PSI when I pulled the hood. Well, the motor was getting hot, the radiator was getting hot, and it was blowing right on the fuel line. And that was causing fuel to heat up, and it was pushing it past the needle and seat. And every time I rev it, it would just boil over the vent, and it'd suck it in the motor, and it would just kill it. So I let it cool off a little bit, and I can't think of what you call it right now. Yeah, I can't remember what you call it right now. Anyway, there was like a 16th to an 18th, or to an 8th of play between it. Like, I clear as day, like quarter throttle, there was nothing. It's the accelerator pump. So I adjusted that, got that a little bit tighter. And then I was racing a Jeep, and thankfully he was a little less power. I already paid the money, so I went for it. I ended up beating him, but the truck just ran like shit. Well, the next round I was racing Ford, and his shit sounded good. He had everything together. I just didn't have what it takes, so my truck was a little bit cooled off, but it just ran like shit. They didn't have any power, but I still had some fun. So the things I'm gonna do is, I was always gonna relocate the battery because it just runs a little S10 battery. And now that I got my electronic water pump and my fans, it just doesn't have enough power to keep them running with the engine off because the battery dies. So I'm gonna end up relocating it into the bed. That way I can use a bigger battery. I mean, this thing's only got 615 at 32 degrees. The other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a shroud. I don't have a lot of room, but the problem I'm having is the fan blows directly on the fuel line. And if you look at the level, the fans are blowing right on the carb, and I'm still running inner fenders, so it's holding the heat in like a motherfucker. Also, I just kept the distributor locked out because it was locked out in the old motor. I just slapped it in. It sounded good. It was mostly there, but it needs to go. So what we're gonna do is I bought timing weights and the springs, the whole kit, because when I moved, I can't find where all my parts went. And then we're gonna try to get that set up so I got a little more power out of the hole. Otherwise, nothing broke. I was kind of disappointed because the first race, I had my GoPro going and I broke the cover the night before. And the first race I did that I won, the battery fell out. So all the other races I did before that, they stayed in. And then the race I lost, I ended up zip tying the battery in just so that I had video of it. I want to clarify a few things because I didn't really finish. As far as the battery, it's not that the battery, I can't just upgrade the battery. It's that I don't have any room for the battery to actually sit in this place. It's just too tight. I can put the big battery in here, but because I'm already maxed out. And then with the radiator, I just made some mounts. I just tapped this down enough that it didn't actually go into any of the rows. But I was watching a couple videos, and because this is back before I really had YouTube and everything where you could really research or any of the forums. You know, I was still new to all this. I watched a guy the other day that he bought one, and I don't know if I can use this one because this one's the Corvette radiator everybody always uses. But a lot of guys, they slide the motor back, and I didn't. And it really helped that I have the body lifts. But this guy, he cut a little bit of the core support out, which was just kind of the edges, and he slid this inside because I got extra room and I could always change the location of the tranny cooler. The other thing I didn't like was he cut part of the core support out like so, but he put some vacuum line on it. And that was actually on a second gen, I believe. Just looking at the way the support was. So I might do that too, because then that would free up literally from here to the end of the fans of clearance. And then I would just have the cap under the hood, because I would like to try to put like a diverter in there enough that it would blow out the bottom with the fans, and then that would kind of keep a lot of the heat out. The other thing I thought too is maybe I put these as a pusher, and then I can put that little diverter in here, and then I think as long as it blows most of the heat down out of this area, I think I'll be good. Because I don't want to pull the inner fenders out at all. I still want it to be like a truck, be able to drive it. And I don't want the dirt flying around, or, if it happens to rain, it blows water all over. But those are a couple of the things I would like to do. I think right now that's about all I got, but I was just happy that I finally could get the truck out and actually do something with it. It kind of sucked on the situation, but I still had some fun, and I still had to work half a day, but it was pretty nice. And I really am going to try to go next year, and maybe I'll try to get in a little more dirt drag racing. One other thing I remembered is when I put this motor in, I've tried and tried and tried, but these rubber mounts, if you look the way this motor sits, it's not much, but it sits a little cockeyed. And I've made it straight, and the first time you hammer this thing in low, it moves. But I lowered the floats on this a long time ago, and when I got it back from being dynoed, they were pretty high, so that didn't help anything the other day. But they really didn't tell me what they did to the motor, Because as far as the timing, they just told me it was 36 degrees total. So I don't even know, you know, what it's supposed to be on the dyno. And I haven't called. But I think that's all I got for now. I'm going to start playing with some stuff pretty soon. So probably my next video, I'll be doing the distributor and hopefully testing that.